Okay, and well, we've talked about everything that built up to what you became and excelled at, which was a very successful journalist. You sort of said you've been in the right place at the right time a few times. This may not sound like the right place and the right time, but after you joined the Croydon Advertiser, the IRA blew up your local pub and a policeman was murdered, separate incidents. So,
Well, I was lucky. I went from the Press Association to the Croydon Advertiser as a junior reporter. I met my wife there, which was one of the biggest bonuses of I suppose of my life. And after I don't know 2 years or so, they asked me to become chief reporter of the Causden and Purley Advertiser and the Caterham News, and I was probably 20, 21, very young. But they said, look, nothing happens in Caterham. It's all about planning inquiries and green belt rows, and so I said, okay. It wasn't long. I think within a couple of weeks, the IRA blew up the Caterham Arms pub, injuring a number of soldiers. And shortly after that, the police officer was shot down, gunned down in the street, which for leafy old Waldingham, I think it was, which is part of Caterham, was extraordinary. So we had two of the major stories. And that tended to happen a lot with me. Wherever I went, there was always a big story, etc.
yeah, not least the elephant in Deptford High Street.
Well, I was from the Croydon Advertiser. I actually went north to Sheffield, and after sort of 4 years in Sheffield, on my first day at Sheffield, funny enough, on the Star newspaper, was the opening day of a libel action between Arthur Scargill and Sheffield newspapers, and I was the new boy, literally been in the building 5 minutes, and they said, we want you to cover that with Peter Evans, who was the court reporter. So he said, just, flip-flop it, you do. He said, could you do shorthand? I said, yeah. He said, have you ever done a trial? I said, yeah. Anyway, so we walk over to the court. The case starts. After 5 minutes, this Peter guy, he disappears. So I pick it up. I was there for 2 hours. He came back at 12:30, and basically he stitched me up because I had 2 hours of evidence to phone over to the. So big story. First day at Sheffield. I was there for 2.5 years. 4 years. I was lucky enough to win Campaigning Journalist of the Year. I don't know if anyone's watching Toxic Town on Netflix at the moment. Very similar story about pollution of chemical works affecting the offspring of people who work there. And then I came back to London because my father was ill, and then I became deputy editor of the South East London Mercury. It's the paper I used to sell when I was in the kiosk, so that was quite neat. It wasn't long before the editor went on a sabbatical to Africa or something, to build a church or build a school or something. And a really big story broke about a fire in New Cross. I think 7, 8, 9 youngsters died in a fire, which was a really sort of serious story. And I was the editor, and I had this very difficult and crucial decision as to whether or not to use this picture of one of the deceased hanging out of a window. And I wanted to use it because I thought it summed up the horror of the event, but I didn't want to upset any of the relatives. So I arranged for the reporter Carol Bright for me to meet them, and I met them, and I explained exactly why I wanted to use the picture. And I said, it might be one of your sons. And they said, go ahead. So I published this picture. So that was a big decision. The incident you referred to about the elephant is that my job when I joined the South East London Mercury was to be in charge of the editionising. It used to be one big broadsheet paper, but they wanted to editionise it into Deptford, Peckham, Eltham, Woolwich, all different editions. So our tagline in your new Elephant Jumbo Mercury. And I was driving past Blackheath one day, and I noticed the circus was at Blackheath. And I went and spoke to the boss at the circus. I said, could you bring, I mean, this is the most stupid decision I've ever made, worst idea ever. So could you bring your elephant down to Deptford High Street? I said, I want to use it in the publicity stunt for the South East London Mercury, inside your jumbo edition. So he did. I had no idea the size. It was the container blocked the whole of the High Street. The elephant shat all over the place, and I was holding my head in absolute shame. And I don't think we even got a picture. We might have taken one picture. Couldn't get him out of the way quick enough. 50 quid in cash.
Now, sort of going back to you and Johnny, your careers crossed again in a weird sort of way. He had a touch, and you borrowed 100,000 quid to invest in the stock market at a very inopportune moment.
Oh no, we were living down in Kent, and we had an idea to build our own house. And there was at the time, property was just rising like that. So in my mind, I thought, well, we'll buy this plot of land. We'll wait a while because the values of the land and the values of our existing house is going up. And so I bought this plot of land to build a house on it. And my brother said to me, he said, I've been doing really well lately. He said, I had a few right touches. He said, if ever you want any money to build this house, just let me know. So I said, how much are we talking about? He said, well, I ended up borrowing a substantial amount. And to keep it safe, I put it in the stock market. This was 1987. Do you remember the crash, the stock market crash? My 100 grand debt went down to about 67 quid in one afternoon.
67 quid?
Yeah. Sorry, 67 grand. Oh, yeah, in one afternoon. Mortgage rates went up to 18%. I had two mortgages, a bridges loan, and I went bust basically. But at the time, I was editor of London's news. I was editing that edition of London's news programme called Thames News on the afternoon of the stock market crash. And I tried to keep a professional view of what the crash meant for the viewers of London. And all the time thinking, what am I going to do with that? My own 100 grand, So I kept that to myself.
Did it bounce back, or did you bail out?
Over many years, it took me to bounce back. One of the reasons we returned to Sheffield is that we were skinned. Literally, I had to sell the plot of land, I had to sell the house, and we went to Sheffield. I'm the only person ever to lose money in the London property market, I think.
But to put things in perspective, you got a job on the TV,
yeah,
where you told me you were getting paid 40 grand a year, which I imagine this was a while back, and you just to play snooker all day.
That was only one particular time on one particular job. I was working on a current affairs programme, and there was probably about 3 or 4 weeks left on the run, and we used to go to an ideas meeting, and I had an idea about this disease that makes women blind in pregnancy. Sorry, makes the offspring of pregnant women blind. Toxoplasmosis from memory. I don't know if that's right. It's found in cat's poo. So I said, look, nobody knows about this. People are going out in their garden handling cat's poo, and if they're pregnant. So he said, well, yeah, okay, we'll do that story. This is the editor. So I had one of those real touches. I phoned up the main research centre, which happened to be in Inverness. He gave me the number of a support group. I found a victim, and within about an hour and a half, I'd set the whole story up. And I went in to say to the editor, I've set that whole story up. So he said, well, you couldn't have done that. I said, well, I have. I said, I've got a victim. I said, I've got the world's leading expert. I said, I've got shots of a cellist who's gone blind. I said, I've got that. So he said, well, look, fix it for next week. So we had about 10 days, literally, me and my mate, where we had nothing to do because there was only one more story on the run for us to do. I'd fixed it all up. So we found a snooker room at LWT. We had a 100-frame competition. And I had my phone transferred to the snooker room. So I did joke for a while that I was paid 40 grand a year. I was earning more money than Ronnie O'Sullivan at the time.